Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to show you how we install CChannel. Thanks so much for tuning in. So for those of you who don't know, the reasons why we would use a CChannel in our tabletops is to help avoid cupping and warping throughout the seasons. The tools that we're going to use is a router with a 1/4 inch spiral bit, 1/2 inch brass bushing. We have a depth block to set the router depth. We're going to be attaching it with Rampatech threaded inserts and bolts, and we're going to use a 10mm drill bit to install those. So let's get to it. So we like cutting the grooves using a jig with a brass bushing on the router. We're going to put our jig so it's flush with the end of the table. We then take the piece of CChannel, place it in the 2 grooves, and we're going to put the piece of CChannel where we want it on the underside of the table. The jig has lines which match up with the end of the CChannel, so we just need to center and line up those lines to our CChannel, just like that. And then we're going to be clamping the jig down very strongly. We don't want our jig moving while we do the operation. Once you're happy that everything is in place, you can take out your CChannel, and then we're going to move on to the router. We have a 1/4 inch spiral bit installed with a 1/2 inch brass bushing. The way we set our depth is, we place it on top of the jig, lower it down to the wood surface. I'm then going to lock it. I then have a gauge block, which I already know the depth that I want to cut to, and I'll put that in between my depth stop on the router, and then I'll lock it. So now when I start cutting the grooves, which I'll do in about 4 passes, I know my depth for every groove set, very easy, very repeatable. I have a center line marked on the router, which is going to line up with the line on the jig. We're going to start the router, lower it in about a 1/4 inch, and start making our cut all the way across. We're going to stop at the corresponding line that again lines up with the center of the base plate. I'm going to then repeat that until I'm at my depth that I want to cut, and then repeat that with the second groove. By the way, when I'm cutting these grooves, for the first groove I'm going to be pulling slightly towards me, and for the second groove I'm going to be pushing slightly away from me, keeping even pressure to the outside of the jig. So we just finished the grooves, so let's test fit our CChannel before we remove the jig. Great, fits fantastic. I like to have about a 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch in extra length on our grooves to allow for expansion and contraction. If everything's fitting great, let's take off the jig. From here, now we want to make sure to either vacuum out or blow out all the extra sawdust that's in the groove. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So we've made sure to clean out all the dust out of the grooves. We're now going to be installing the Rampatech threaded inserts and bolts. What are we going to need? A 10mm drill bit, pencil, a couple Allen keys, of course, the inserts and the bolts. So let's get to it. We're going to take our CChannel, place it in our grooves we just cut. We want to center it nicely in those grooves. Very simply, we're just going to mark the center of the laser cut slot. I just do this visually. Of course, you can measure. All right, I'm happy with that. With my 10mm drill bit, I already have the depth marked with a piece of tape. This is a very common procedure, so this is a drill bit that we just keep like this all the time. And the last tidbit about the drill bit is that it's a brad point drill bit. So it's going to line up very nicely to that center mark I just put. Thank you. Mwah. Best tool drill. We've drilled our holes, that's fantastic. Now we have an Allen key adapter which goes in the drill. I'm going to go on slow speed, and then we're able to install all 4 inserts. I like to sink the shoulder just below the surface of the wood. Next up, I have an Allen key also for the bolts. Again, make sure all the sawdust is removed from the grooves. And now we're going to drop our CChannel back in, centering it to our inserts. Looking good. Now we can mount it with the 4 bolts. So that's it. Once the last bolt is tightened down, you've successfully installed your C-channel. Hopefully your table stays flat and beautiful for years to come. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make it a great one. Woo!